OCPS decides where new schools are going to be located, how that process works. Laura Kelly from Legal is going to start us off.
Once the proposed CIP is approved by senior leadership, real estate management goes to work on acquiring those sites listed in the CIP that OCPS does not otherwise own already. For the proposed 2018-2019 10-year CIP that you're seeing here, OCPS either owns or has reserved 15 of the 20 school sites on the list. The remaining 5 sites are either under contract or in negotiations. While we primarily focus on acquiring school sites within the 10-year CIP, real estate also looks more prospectively and works to acquire school sites outside of the 10-year CIP. OCPS currently owns or has reserved 35 school sites throughout Orange County and has another 10 sites under contract or in negotiations. As you can see in the map, the future school sites align with the high growth areas in Horizon West, Southeast Orange, and North Orange. This list includes a number of key factors we review in order to determine the appropriate location for a future school site. While some factors may carry a greater weight when determining where we locate school, no one factor alone can answer that question. We have 2 distinct processes for determining where we locate a school. In the Horizon West area, we use a process called site selection. As many of you know, Horizon West is part of a master plan community where the school sites are in predetermined locations selected by the county and the developers back in the 90s. The plan included 15 elementary school sites, 3 middle school sites, and 1 high school site. Oftentimes, the sites that developers selected as school sites were not necessarily what OCPS would have chosen. Our job is to determine which of these predetermined sites is the most appropriate site to relieve the future potential growth in the area. One of the key factors that plays a role in determining the appropriate site is the availability of infrastructure. The availability of road and utility infrastructure is dependent on the developer's schedule. OCPS does not have a right to require the developer install the infrastructure or convey the site ahead of their schedule. This means that even if we think that a site is an ideal location to provide relief, we cannot force the developer to install the roads or utilities or to convey that site to OCPS so we could begin building there. Here is an example of where we engaged in site selection for site 49EW4. This school is already under construction. When our advanced planning committee determined there was a need for a school site to provide relief for Keene's Crossing in 2019, the next step was to determine the appropriate location. For Horizon West, we have 3 sites in a small area that could provide potential relief. Sites 49EW4, Site 47EW4, and Site 114EW4. The first step was to look at the availability of the school site. Because Site 47 was in the early stages of development, we knew the developer would not have the infrastructure in place by 2019 to serve the school site, so that site is out. That left us with Sites 114 and 49. Site 49 is located on the west side of 429, while Site 114 is located on the east side of 429. If you look at the current student population, you will see there are currently more students residing near 114. But if you look at the 5-year projection for this area, you'll see that the west side of 429 is actually anticipated to grow faster. So this is one of the reasons that Site 49 was selected, because of its proximity to the student population and future growth. For those sites outside of Horizon West, we use a process called site identification. The first step in identifying a potential site is identifying the target area. Once the target area is established, we review the available vacant property and compare the different available sites. One tool we use to determine the appropriate site location is called mean center. I'm going to turn it over to Tommy Moore, our demographer, to give you a brief description of this tool.
Okay, mean center is a GIS tool we use. It's a statistical tool to determine the geographic center of a group of students. So next slide. So in the past, we went through this particular exercise of determining if either of these sites would be the most central location of a future high school campus when all the development has been built. The school with the circle representing the school with the circle represents our existing high school, and the circled flags represent the new potential sites. The colored dots represent existing students as well as projected students from residential growth. When we run the mean center tool, the X's represent the mean center. So with the students to the south, the mean center is right at the location of the existing schools. With the schools to the north, both sites are very close to the mean center of the northern students.
An example of where we use mean center in site identification is for Site 119 HSE2, which is a proposed relief high school site for Lake Nona High and Cypress Creek Relief. The first step was to determine the target area based on the location of the two current schools and the mean center of the existing and future student population. For our high school, a target area has a radius of approximately 3 miles. Once we establish a target area, we eliminate any areas that are unsuitable for a school. In this case, there are a number of areas that are shaded in red and pink on the northern portion of the target area. These areas are the airport noise corridor and flight paths. Schools are statutorily restricted in these areas, so those areas are automatically eliminated. That cuts our search area almost in half. Then we look for vacant properties. For a high school, we're looking for approximately 55 to 65 acres. While we're not required to use vacant property, we try to focus our efforts on vacant real estate first. We try to avoid buying houses or developed properties. The primary reason is because we don't want to displace anyone, especially the students that we're trying to serve. Second, the price of developed property is usually significantly more than a vacant site. Once we have identified all potential locations, we do a comparison of all available sites using the factors previously mentioned. For example, you'll see on this slide a total of 9 options we reviewed. For the sites in the yellow cross hatch, there are sites that are currently vacant but under development, so we cross those sites off the list. Another site option was eliminated because it had significant wetlands on site. Site 8 had limited roadway frontage and only 1 median cut, which to us means there would be a high potential for traffic congestion, so that site was eliminated. Others, like options 4 and 6, were eliminated because of infrastructure issues. In this instance, we ended up identifying site option 7 as the appropriate site because of its proximity to the student population, size, configuration, adjacent land uses, and the available transportation network. Once we have located the site and are under contract, our work doesn't stop there. We have a due diligence period where we conduct a number of different tests. We test whether the roads can handle the school traffic, whether there are threatened or endangered species on site, any prior contamination, and whether the soils are adequate to build a school on. This past year, we terminated 2 contracts because of nearby sinkhole activity and potential groundwater contamination. When we terminate a contract, we then have to go back and review our other site options again. If nothing negative comes up in our due diligence, we proceed with obtaining the approvals from the local government.